Welcome everyone to the March edition of the Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association meeting. Thanks for showing up. Again, welcome. You made it. Ground rules before we start. If you're online, please enter your questions into the chat. Remember, please, no interruptions and behave with common courtesy. Today's agenda, we will start with public comment. We'll have board updates. I feel like there's a slight echo still. Let me know if that bothers you because it's slightly bothering me. We'll get into the crime and safety report, neighborhood updates from Ron Coleman. We'll go into a treasurer's report, dig into some events and news around the neighborhood, and then give it over to our guests today, who will present on phase 2 designs of the Tower Grove connector. Before we begin, we have about 5 minutes of public comment space. If there's anyone who would like to share any concerns or thoughts before we get into neighborhood updates, just raise your hand or give me a thumbs up on Zoom. Oh, yes, sure, yeah. Wait.
Hi, I've been here since last year, and I've been brought up a couple times about our parking on the block. And I wanted to see where that was at this morning. Year two, trying to wait to get that squared away. And I haven't heard back anything since then, since I last reached out to you, Mr. Bowles. I want to know where I'm coming on behalf of myself and my neighbors to ask me about that.
It's on the agenda. So.
Yeah, but I haven't been asking, I just haven't heard.
I've gotten a few emails and phone calls about parking districts and parking tickets. I will quickly cover that in today's meeting to help anyone who has had trouble getting a new parking permit through the new parking permit process to navigate that. So we'll cover that in a couple minutes here. With that being said, we'll move on to ward updates. If Alderman Browning, if you'd like to share anything ward-wide. Yep.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Browning. I'm your Alderman. We have a few updates that I want to discuss tonight. First and foremost, we have the April election coming up in April, as it turns out. And on the ballot, there will be a bond question about MSD and the rate increase. I want to be clear when I'm describing this, that the rate will go up either way. MSD is going to be implemented a rate increase to make up for costs that are increasing in order to keep doing the replacement of infrastructure and make sure they can handle myriad of different issues. What you'll see on this spreadsheet that I'm handing out is the different results if you vote yes on the bond measure or no on the bond measure. And as you can see, the pricing structure is come out slightly differently and how much it'll go out each year. I would encourage you all to consider the yes measure because it actually evens it out and doesn't create steeper increases. You'll actually see the average bill reflected there. I think it's a very educational resource. But this is really something that is going to happen in the way of deciding how responsibly we do it. On the other side, actually, you'll see something. There's two proposals here: wastewater and stormwater. So that's the wastewater proposal that I just told you about. That's making sure that your sewage gets down to your home properly. Very important service. The other thing is stormwater. Now we've had a lot of flooding in the city recently, and we all remember the summer of 2022, in which we had floods all throughout the city, caused a lot of damage. MSD is trying to upgrade their systems to deal with that as we see more and more violent storms. The stormwater initiative would place a tax on what they're calling impervious surfaces. So for you as the homeowner, you're talking maybe a $2 increase to your bill because your single family home or your apartment does not actually take up that much space in terms of impervious surfaces. But this is looking at trying to get places like Schnucks over on William. That's a huge parking lot that drains off a lot of water and stores the sewage systems. And so this is meant to encourage better land use and to create permeable surfaces so that the water can run into the ground and not flood off into areas and then flood our homes or our streets or anything else. So that's the general summary of that. I'd encourage you to take a look at this and do some more research on it. And you can always reach out to MSG directly. They're very, very willing to talk about it. This is somewhat of a complicated subject, but I wanted to put this all in front of you tonight as something that's going to be on the April ballot. Another thing that I want to talk to you all about is an effort to update our complete streets ordinance in the city. As we have seen, reckless driving has become a major issue in the city. It's a top concern of mine. I want to make sure that we feel safe in our walkable neighborhood, that we feel like we can walk and bike places, or that we can also safely drive places. It affects all of us. Part of that is making sure we have good infrastructure like sidewalks, but the other part of that is making sure that our roads are designed with the most vulnerable road users in mind. And that's what the Complete Streets Ordinance update is supposed to do. So this is a bill that's sponsored by Alderman Schweitzer of the First Ward. I'm co-sponsoring it. We're running it through the Public Infrastructure Committee. We're going to be having a hearing on it at 10 a.m. on March 25th at City Hall, or you can also attend online. If you go to the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee, you can find the link there. The exciting thing about this is that this policy has not been updated in 10 years. We've learned a lot about how to design safer streets since then. And so we're really trying to prioritize the communities who have been underserved, make sure that we are targeting areas where you do see the most violent incidents happen, making sure that roads are designed with every road user in mind, but especially the people that are the most vulnerable. To me, when I see somebody in a wheelchair in our roads instead of on our sidewalk, that is a failure of our system, and I want to make sure we address that. So first, it's policy, making sure that we pass good policies like this, and then the next step is making sure that we have the structure to follow through with that. So this is going to be a priority of that committee going forward, and would love to hear all your thoughts on it. If you would like to come to that committee meeting, either online or virtually, and hear about that. Another thing, I'm trying to speed through these because we have a lot of updates, but we passed out of the board a bill on opening restaurants and obtaining liquor licenses. We, again, understand that the city has too much red tape in this area, that it is very, very difficult to go through what is called the private petition process, to knock a bunch of doors, get a bunch of signatures to open a restaurant that serves liquor. So this bill changed it just for restaurants. And what is a restaurant? It is somebody who makes over 50% of their money on selling food. So this wouldn't apply to nightclubs. This wouldn't apply to strict bars. This would only apply to restaurants. But this is to provide an alternate process for them to go through that wouldn't require them to go and obtain signatures. The reason it's difficult to obtain signatures these days is many, but most of it's because you all won't open your doors. I'm just joking. You all actually do mostly open when someone knocks, but it is difficult when there's secure buildings. You know, say you wanted to open a restaurant in the Central West End and you're surrounded by a bunch of buildings that have a front door and it's locked all the time. Well, you can't get signatures from that, and yet the restaurant would be something that would serve the community. So this just puts in place an alternate method. There's still a chance for the public to come and be heard, but it's done a little differently, and that way we don't deny our ability to open lots of new restaurants. And living in a neighborhood where the restaurants are a big part of our identity, I think this is a really good thing for everybody. We also passed a bill that establishes a rental registry. This is meant to get a better hold on property owners in the city that lack accountability, making sure that we know behind the LLC who owns every piece of rental property, and that we're doing routine inspections throughout the city. Believe it or not everywhere in the city is currently under an inspection program. So I actually represent parts of this ward that were part of the old 18th ward, not this neighborhood, but up kind of the eastern section of the Central West End, where they do not get housing inspections currently, and the housing stock ends up deteriorating. Landlords know they're not getting inspected, so they don't make updates, and people end up living in outright squalor. So this is meant to address that, make sure that we are having good habitable housing for people, because we know that affects your day-to-day life, and we know that affects people's ability to thrive in our city. Next update I have for you is the senior citizen property tax freeze. So this, looking at this crowd, probably wouldn't apply to a lot of you, but if you know somebody who would benefit, please do share. You can now apply for the senior property tax freeze. What this is 62 or older, eligible for Social Security benefits, and your home is both your primary residence and is $500,000 or less in value. You can apply to freeze the city portion of your taxes. This is the implementation of a law that was passed at the Missouri State Legislature last year. We tried to do it as responsibly as possible in the city, so we exempted the taxes that go to our schools, for instance, the taxes that go to our special business districts, and the taxes that go to like our art museum and our parks and stuff like that. So those are all exempted, but the city's portion of the taxes would be frozen. And I do have paper applications here. So if anybody does want to apply for that or knows someone who might be eligible for that, please do pick one of these up. You can also apply online at the assessor's website. Last, we have red light cameras that we are looking to bring back in the city. Again, in terms of reckless driving, we've seen a lot of people running red lights. A couple of weeks ago, a 6th grader was hit crossing Kings Highway by a red light runner. They were sent to the hospital. Thankfully, they're going to make a full recovery. But this is scary stuff, and we're trying to make sure that we create some sort of accountability here. So we are looking to reinstitute red light cameras and something new, speed cameras. So these would also pick up the speed that someone is going when they run the red light, and issue a steeper fine if they say are blowing the red light at 80 miles per hour versus if they make a full stop and then creep through it. This is just, again, an attempt to be a force multiplier for our police, because we know that the reckless driving has been on the increase, and it's getting quite dangerous out there. So we're trying to do what we can to help there. They instituted this in Baltimore and saw a 15% reduction in crashes. So, I know that's not going to stop every single red light runner, but the idea is that you can reduce crashes by 15%. Those are people that are not getting injured. Those are people that are not getting killed. And that is really important to me. Let's see. I've gotten a few questions about 4101 Manchester. You might be familiar with that little wedge lot down at the eastern end of Manchester that's had a fence around it for the last several years. That property is still in limbo. The status of it is that it used to belong to the city. The city sold it to a developer. They installed about $1 million worth of pylons to start building a building there, and then they ran out of money. So it's been sitting. The difficulty here and why the city hasn't taken the property back is because, as part of the way that the contract was written, the city would have to buy it back plus the cost of improvement. So the property is now worth what it was worth, plus the $1.5 million of pylons that they put in. The city's not in a position to reacquire that property. We are actively seeking another developer. The good news is that any developer can use those pylons. So they've already got a head start on the building. But the bad news is that that really prominent corner of our neighborhood continues to sit. And just know that it is a priority of ours. We're trying to get it moving, because we know that that also affects the walkability of the neighborhood down at that corner. Last couple of things. On April 20th, we will have the next phase of the NorthPoint project. That's the project up on Kings Highway where those old houses used to be, as well as the site over by the pedestrian bridge. That engagement meeting will be April 20th at 10 a.m. over at SLU High School. You can check on the Neighborhood Association's website, and I think Dan's also including it in the updates. We have a map here. If you're going to drive, parking lot that you should park in is not this little lot where you enter here, but you're actually going to drive around and park in this lot. If you walk, it's really easy. We're actually going to be in the Kurgan room, and you can actually just walk right across Oakland Avenue. Please be very careful crossing Kings Highway. I know it's dangerous. Good news is that that project will actually include some upgrades to that intersection, which will be nice. But that's a way to walk. So again, 10 a.m. You don't have to arrive precisely at 10 a.m. This is going to be an open house style engagement, so you can actually walk through and arrive anytime between 10 and noon and participate. We'll have different tables to talk about different subjects. We'd love to see you all there and hear your input. This is really important that we give the neighborhood a chance to dive into that, and we should have more details. Part of the reason it's April 20th and not this month is that we've been taking time from the feedback we've already received to make sure that we get the information that people have requested. So traffic studies, detailed renderings, all sorts of things that people can really dive into the project and make sure that they get a really good idea of it. So hope to see you all on April 20th at SCLU High School at 10 a.m. Last couple of things, if you haven't been participating in the MoDOT Manchester project, MoDOT is right now doing community engagement to redesign and reconfigure the MoDOT corridor. They take care of Shoto Avenue from all the way downtown, all the way to our neighborhood, and then they take care of Manchester from our neighborhood all the way out into the county. They are right now looking at how they can make that street safer for all of us. And these public engagements that they're doing are a way for you to share how that can really be better for you in the neighborhood. Questions like, where do you feel most dangerous when you're crossing Manchester? How do you interact with it if you bike down Shoto? Like, what are the things that are you facing? We want to hear that kind of input from you all, because this is how MoDOT's going to design a better road. So keep an eye out for future engagement dates on that subject. And that is all I have for you. So we can have a quick moment. Any questions? We'll start with parking. I'm continuing to talk to the treasurer's office about the program. As you know, it has been in limbo for a couple of years. Under the previous alderperson, Park Central stopped administering it and it moved to the treasurer's office. The treasurer's office is also handling parking districts all across the city. So they started looking for a more efficient way of monitoring these parking districts. The difficulty is that this is not a money grab for them. They actually lose money enforcing these parking districts. But the service is there to ensure that residents have a spot near their house and are not overwhelmed by people parking from the nearby university, which is mostly the problem in this neighborhood. While they've been getting this underway, there's been some growing pains. There's been some signs that should have been installed a year ago and still aren't up. Myself and Mr. Coleman continue to bother them, I think, every week about that. We are doing our best to try to get this in good shape because we know how much it affects all of your lifestyles and want to make sure that this is working well for you all and that you can have trust in this system. So it is ongoing, but we'll see if we can get maybe the treasurer back here in a future meeting, and maybe we can give some feedback directly, because I think the new system has got some things that aren't working for everybody. But we are aware of that, and we do want to prioritize that. With that, does anyone have any other questions? Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I noticed you throw that word accountability around quite a bit, and you ran on a renter's rights. And by bringing up the permits and the lack of permits in certain areas, I don't know if you're aware that the permitting in certain areas has been strenuous, and it actually drives investment away from the city. It's in the paper, we're losing people. The city is chasing people out. And this strategy of trying to prioritize someone that is buying a service but not investing and not owning is really far-fetched. It's bad policy. And to give you an example, when we have an issue with this neighborhood, like the NorthPoint project, everyone that shows up for meetings that is concerned, they're all owners. They're owners. And owners' rights have to be prioritized. Otherwise, when you don't, the government doesn't support people that invest and that really want to own a property. When they actually go after them with permitting, with all these fines, with fees, with the Team 4 racist development, and you continue to push this policy, you're only pushing people out, this investment. And when you keep saying people are living in squalor and all this, that's just not true. Because the market, people are renting properties that are available. And when you push ownership out, the property goes empty, it goes vacant, it becomes a vacant lot. And we're quite aware of what the city is able to do with their busted development, like this failed development in our neighborhood. The city takes it over and it becomes a vacant lot and an eyesore for many, many years. So I'm asking you to please reconsider your strategy of prioritizing a renter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dan. I think it's important, I absolutely agree that owners' rights are just as important, and that's why we do engage with people on all sorts of issues to make sure that we're not affecting their homes in any adverse way. But I do want to push back on this idea. Over half the city is renters. So to say that, we should not prioritize them would be folly as well. Yeah, landlords, small and large. So, making sure that we have enough housing for everybody, making sure that we have inspections to make sure that they are meeting housing codes so that people do have a good place to live. Because, yeah, believe it or not, there are lots of places in the city that you wouldn't want a family member to live in, or you yourself wouldn't want to live in. And I know this because I've been to these places. I've toured the place, I've seen it, I've seen what kind of conditions they're living in. And, I'm talking, I don't want to go too into detail here, but I'm talking like roach infestations, leaking water that causes rampant mold throughout the house. We read a story recently about this woman in South City. Her last name was Doherty. I don't know if you remember that story. She was renting a house where people were using the bathroom in a bucket and dumping it out the window because they didn't have running water. So to say that there isn't a problem in this city, we do have a problem, and that has a ripple effect. When people don't have stable housing, they don't lead stable lives.
And then guess what? Then we have a homeless problem. If you're not living in those houses that are of poor quality, they're living under the bridge and on the sidewalk. I mean, at least if you have a house, you can upgrade a house. But if you're living on the sidewalk, that's hard to upgrade. And the city's having a problem with that.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, so we definitely are trying to make sure we have housing policy that works for everybody in the city. And so making sure that we have places that are both habitable and plentiful, because we need to continue to build units. As we covered in previous meetings, we have fewer housing units available in the city.
What we're saying, man, is that
than we
you
did
need to
30
be
years
working
ago.
with
So
owners instead of fighting the owners. And your policy has been fighting and beating down ownership, which leads to homelessness and disinvestment.
yeah, and we're certainly not trying to beat down on owners. We want to make sure that people are able to afford their homes. So we're definitely doing a lot. And on that note, if you do have home repair that you need in this neighborhood, make sure you reach out and talk to Park Central. They do have a healthy home repair program, and that can help you if you have any kind of necessary home repairs and are on a fixed income. So there's a lot of things we do. Again, I don't want to go too far into it tonight because I know we've got a packed schedule. And
There's one question.
one more question. Oh, yeah.
Question from Rachel here about there's been a substantial increase in reckless driving along Shoto. Are there any opportunities for speed humps or other, I suppose, calming measures in the works?
Yes, great question. So Shoto is a great example of one of those streets that's just way too wide and could absolutely use some traffic calming. Whether it's speed humps or something else, I want to make sure that we're prioritizing that. I have had early conversations with planning and zoning about creating a plan for Shoto. We know that the Tower Grove connector is going to be coming up Sarah in that area. We'll hear a little bit more about that tonight. Very excited about that. But wanting to make sure that people have a link to take that over to the pedestrian bridge and into the park. And so I have been exploring early designs and am prioritizing that because that's just a street that, again, is too wide for its current use. And we definitely need to have some traffic calming there. So I'm not sure if it would be speed humps or something else. That's something I really leave to the experts who design streets. But I am prioritizing that, and we are exploring some possibilities. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alderman Browning. I'm gonna hand it off to Ron Coleman. Unfortunately, Officer Walker couldn't make it today. We have Ron here to talk about neighborhood updates.
I'll be really quick. Michael had all the cool stuff. I've got the boring stuff, but I do want to listen to any feedback you have on the parking district. I know that's a big concern. I've gotten a lot of emails, some forwarded from Dan about citizens not being able to even apply for a permit because their address isn't in the city system, so they can't even get logged in. So if you are one of those people, please come give me your address tonight and we'll get that changed. And I know Ms. Merchant here is having, we're having issues with the parking, traffic division that we used to make our signs in-house in the city, and now they're farming that out. We have one sign person for the entire city, and there's 1,000 service requests open right now. It's really not a good situation for anybody. There's some places where I've been asking for signs for over a year, just constantly texting the supervisor of traffic, and they're just like, we can't do it. So, I will ask
Due
again.
diligence, and we're
right.
on 2 blocks. I
You're
mean,
just
every
2
block
blocks,
around
right.
us, then every WashU person comes. I have
Exactly.
elderly neighbors. It's just.
That's another thing Michael and I talked about a while back, which I've talked to the traffic division, is we want to remove some of the no parking north of Highway 40 in the Cortex WashU area, where like Clayton Avenue, and there's some streets like Taylor and, well, probably Newstead, more likely, where you could have parking on the street north, which would open up some more parking for people that don't want to pay for lots up there, and then hopefully less in the neighborhood. But that's just an additional strategy to getting your signs in. Okay, so if you ordered a tree from the city or requested a city tree, they should be getting to our ward soon. They plant by ward, so hopefully you'll see some new trees going in. Any other issues? Just always monitoring I know a lot of you see cars that are dumped from, maybe they're stolen and they get dumped on your block. Just let me know if you have a car that hasn't moved and we'll try to get it towed. Yeah, other than that, yes.
So I have a question with parking on Arco. So some places they have 45-degree angle parking, which used to be a two-way street, it's just a one-way street now. That would make more room for parking if you would do 45-degree on one side. Is that a possibility?
There's the street has to be a certain width, and in some cases, so if you take one side of the street and make it angle parking, you do add 33% more parking spaces. But if the street isn't wide enough, you'd have to remove the parking on the other side of the street. So and then if your block is closed off or is a one-way, that could be other challenges. But if you and your neighbors you think it would work, give me the block and we'll look at it. But I'm thinking Arco isn't wide enough. I know West Pine wasn't even wide enough. We did it on Laclede in a couple places by Starlet's, but West Pine wasn't wide enough. So I doubt Arco would be.
Yeah, I doubt it too.
But we're open to all these ideas from you guys. All right, I know you got a packed agenda, but I'm here as a resource for you. If you have any challenging issues, just let me know. So thank you. Yeah.
The potholes, I see that they've identified them. When are they getting filled? Yeah, because they are just tearing up our.
They should be pretty quick with potholes.
I've reported every pothole in Taylor, so I don't.
There's one more that's not
Spray painted.
marked,
I don't
yeah.
know who spray painted.
I don't know, it's not the city is not spray painting
They're all
potholes.
yellow and there's just two-way traffic, you can't block it up.
Yeah, although it's very helpful.
It's especially for bicyclists, yeah.
City did it, yeah.
But that's not, no, it's not city, but they've been filling the potholes I put in within a week, so. And the weather, I mean, it depends on the weather.
That's a great reminder. Citizen Service Bureau is, you can report potholes via Citizen Service Bureau. There's multiple ways to do it. Back when I was on Twitter, I found it very easy to do it via tweet, but you can also do it online or by phone. And, you know, that's how city problems get fixed, right? We can't fix it if we don't know about it.
And we
So-
do have an automated system that's gone in the last 6 months or so. So you can call 24 hours a day and it transcribes your voice and puts in the request. And we go through this every morning and try to interpret what you really meant to say. AI isn't always perfect, but yeah, so that your calls generate a service request that goes directly to that department. So you call Citizen Service Bureau, the street department gets in the morning and they see all these requests and they just get it directly. Forestry as well, so, okay.
Awesome, thank you, Ron. I'm gonna zoom back out. Oh, look at that. All right, we'll jump into the treasurer's report. I can cover it for you, Evan. Last month, we had $15.99 expense for Zoom and $426 in dues and donations with an ending balance of $24.22.25. If you would like to be a dues paying member, membership is pay what you can. In previous years, it was $10, but to make it equitable for everyone, you can pay as little as a penny or as much as you would like to support the association and a lot of the events that we host and a lot of the cleanups that we do. To pay, you can pay through Cash App. We do not have Venmo, or you can pay by cash and check. Just send an email to forestparksoutheast@gmail.com or find Cami, Evan, or I, or Michael or Sarah after the meeting, and we can help you out. As mentioned, parking, we do have a resource on our website that covers parking information, everything from what a parking district is, to the current parking districts, to how to request or remove a parking district, and how to register your car for a parking pass. If you go to our website, forestparksoutheast.com, it's right on the homepage here. It's really big. All you gotta do is click it, and it'll take you to the page, and all the information you need is there to get over to Park Louis to pay any tickets or to register your car for a permit. Oh, fun. Events and news. As Michael had shared, NorthPoint is hosting an open house for the planned apartments over on the northwest side of the neighborhood. That's on Saturday, April 20th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Open house style, so come in and leave whenever you'd like. It's in the Corrigan Room, as Michael had mentioned as well. It's right off of Oakland, so you can walk there. Be careful walking across Kings Highway. But if you'd like to park, the parking lot is in the back. This information is also on our website if you needed it, and I sent it out in the newsletter. But if you'd like it, I can send it to you afterwards. All right. Continuing on, we have a new restaurant on the strip, Neon Greens. It's a restaurant that is also a farm. Right next door to the restaurant, they have a hydroponic facility that produces the greens that you eat right after it's harvested. Everything is locally sourced. They specialize in salads. The hydroponic facility is really cool. It's neon and it has all the greens, hence the name probably Neon Greens. They opened today. Stop by, say hi to Josh, who's the owner. Really friendly guy, and try one of their many unique and fun salads. All right. We've got some events coming up. Shoto Park, we have tree mulching, and we are also looking for tree waterers. On Sunday, April 7th at 10 a.m., we will be mulching all of the new trees that we planted over the winters and falls. If you have a wheelbarrow or pitchfork for moving mulch, we would love your hands and your equipment to borrow. And if you also love seeing our trees grow, we ask for you to volunteer to water them. It does get hot in the summer and they do not water themselves. So if you would like to volunteer to help water maybe 5 trees, a couple times a month, a couple times.
Ideally once a week.
Once a week?
Once a month is better than nothing.
Let Cami, know if you're interested, or you can send an email to, forestparksoutheast@gmail.com. We do have our first monthly cleanup event of the year. Phil, I know you're excited. I'm excited too. They happen on the fourth Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. We meet at Manchester and Newstead and we cover different parts of the area each month. Big shout out to Brightside for providing the tools and the gloves to make this event happen every month. Our first one is this weekend at 10 a.m. We pick up a lot of trash. Somehow, some way, the litter gets onto the ground and into the bags. Wouldn't happen without the help of the neighborhood. So join us, 10 a.m. Should be a good day. And then we are also partnering with Midtown on a Young Professionals Happy Hour on Thursday, April 11th from 5 to 7 at Pie Guy. Join your friends and your colleagues for a night of fun at Pie Guys. All of the 10% of all beverage and pizza sales during the 2-hour window will support Midtown's youth programs, including after school, teen club, and summer academy day camp. It's all for a good cause and it'll be a good time. So I hope to see some of your faces on April 11th. A few more things to cover up before we get to our friends over at the Tower Grove Connector. Call to action to join the Infrastructure Committee. If you're interested in recommending how work capital be spent on residential and commercial infrastructure and planning for future infrastructure in Forest Park Southeast. Applications are open. We are looking for a good, diverse group of people who can represent the neighborhood and improving its walkability and pleasantry when you're out and about. If you're interested, please apply at parkcentraldevelopment.org. Likewise, the Development Review Committee is also taking applications. This committee is responsible for advocating for neighborhood positive developments, reviewing proposals where the city would like that neighborhood input, and reviewing conditional uses, variances, acquisition of city-owned land. The committee is looking for a minimum of 9 members. Again, looking for diversity in background and where you live and who you are. So residents, property owners, employees of a business within the neighborhood are encouraged to apply. That application can be found at parkcentral.org. And their next meeting will be March 26th at 6:30 p.m. You can meet via Zoom or at the Park Central office at 4512 Manchester. The projects that they will be reviewing in that meeting include the single-family home on 4368 Hunt. Pictured here is the vacant lot that the property currently is, and to the right, yes, is the rendering of the proposed home. So the project it's a 2-story residential house with the build out of a basement totaling 2,600 square feet, in addition to a secured carport. The project is currently waiting for a conditional use hearing and is seeking a signed letter of support to move forward. The other project that they're reviewing is an update on the previously recommended project at 431220 Vista and 1401 Tower Grove. That's right over there. After going before the committee had recommended adding some front door access, and the developer went and did that for all of the units. An entry vestibule is shared by every 4 units. So they made modifications to the previous rendering and floor plans. The existing site has been vacant for multiple years. These are row houses for ownership. The exterior is 100% brick and continues to serve a growing need for houses in the neighborhood. I think they're for rent, not for own. Sorry. Any questions over all of the wonderful events and news that we just shared? All right, the moment you've been waiting for. our friends to present on the Tower Grove connector. I will pull that up here in 1 second. All right, I can grab it, like, someone to change it.
Cool, thank you. My name is Adam Treaser. I am a bike and ped planner for TrailNet, a local nonprofit. If you've never heard of us, we advocate for safer streets in the St. Louis region. We're a 501c3.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lee Freya. I am a project manager with Lockmuller Group, a small engineering firm that is working on this project.
Cool, so let's get started. If you want to move on. Yeah. So what is Tower Grove Connector? If you might recognize me, if you were here last summer, we did a small presentation. You've probably heard about it if you're a cyclist, especially. Tower Grove Connector, we're splitting it up into 2 phases. We're mostly here talking to you about phase 2, but we'll give a quick rundown of phase 1, which is this yellow line along Tower Grove Ave and Vandeventer. And then phase 2 here is going on Sarah. And so the idea is to basically make a consistent cycle track, which is a 2-way facility, so bikes riding in both directions on one side of the street. The whole corridor is going to be done sort of elevated at the sidewalk level. So sort of think of it like a little greenway, but you're separated from pedestrians. You're not sharing the space with pedestrians, and you're separated from cars by having that curb height and some landscaping. And in most places as well, parked car. So yeah, this is just one cycle track project amongst a whole series of projects in the whole St. Louis region. Most of you have probably heard of the Brick Line, and we're going to be tying into that near the Metrolink station. Cool. So phase 1, I know everyone has been very antsy about getting construction started on that. We are expecting it to start construction this summer. The city is still bidding out to a contractor right now on that, but the design is done. It's all ready to go. And so once that contractor is bid, then they will start construction in the summer, and it'll take about a year or so to complete that. And then for phase 2, we're here talking to you today. We're working on the design of phase 2, but that one is going to be wrapping up and starting construction 2025, 2026 timeframe. So here's a rendering of what phase 1 is going to look like near Botanical Gardens. This is on Tower Grove Ave. I don't know what the cross street here is, but that's kind of the general idea here of, if you know Tower Grove Ave in this section, you have parking, then the bike lane, then the 2 car lanes, then the bike lane again, and then the parking up against the curb. And so we've essentially taken the 2 bike lanes and pushed them off to one side and raised them up at the sidewalk level. So it keeps, for a cyclist, that's extremely safe. This is probably the safest design you can get to without, completely removing all the cars. So compared to today, if you've ever driven down Tower Grove Ave, the past 3 years, you know there's tons of potholes, and that's because we've been waiting for this project to get off the ground. And why repave the road? We're going to repave it when this gets started in the summer. So. We've had some previous comments about this intersection last time I was here in the summer. For the connector on Tower Grove Ave, we will be going on the west side of the street for the most part by Mobot. But when we get up to Vandeventer, we'll need to be on the east or south side of Vandeventer, and so cyclists will need a place to cross over. I can explain more if you ask a question later, but essentially at McCree today, at that traffic light, there will be a raised crossing diagonally, and there will be sort of a bike ped exclusive phase where bikes and peds can cross over, and all cars will have red lights. So if you need more detail on that, you can ask a question at the end. And here's a short little render, the overhead sort of what's happening at the Vandeventer Tower Grove Ave intersection. And most of you all know about this school bus entrance off on the side. That is going to be relocated, get that away from cleaned up this intersection, make it a lot safer. And then we have our cycle track down here on the eastern side, going around the corner and then coming over to the sort of southern side of Van Deventer and going up north this way towards Sarah Street. And then that's a rendering of what that will look like along Van Deventer. You know, Sarah's probably way down there, and this is, I think like Kentucky or something like that. Yeah. So that's kind of the general feel. Again, cycling both directions on one side of the sidewalk level, separated with some landscaping and parked cars, and then Van Deventer with 3 lanes, and again, parking those side. And then here is where phase 1 is going to transition into phase 2. So there will be a new light at Sarah. There is no light there today. This is just 4 lanes on Van Deventer. We go down to 3, so you get an actual left turn lane, get some new crosswalks, and then we'll have the sidewalk crossing. And while phase 1 is being built for a couple years, we'll just have the cycle track sort of end and go up onto Sarah as just exactly as Sarah is now. Eventually, with Sarah getting rebuilt in phase 2, we'll see this extended up. Cool. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to take over. We have a bit of a lane diet, as we've used that a couple times. The lane width between right-of-ways is reduced here, so we don't quite have enough room to maintain parking. In fact, there was a whole study just trying to determine how to make the best path further into Forest Park or north with this project. I won't bore you with the details, but Sarah was chosen as the ideal path out of the 3 different options that were explored through traffic studies, et cetera. We're going to have to get rid of parking through the knuckle on both sides. We tried to keep it on one side. We just don't have enough building width. Right now, the building on the left is historic and is probably going to get redeveloped. The building on the right, also historic. We can't do anything. Those buildings are pushed to the max. And just with lane widths the way that they are, we can't squeeze it. With the exception of in front of Chroma, which is the 900 block. Let me second forward one. And actually I'll get to the detail on that on a later slide. In front of Chroma, we are able to squeeze in parking, and when I get to that, I'll talk a little bit more, but the first renderings that we're going over kind of skip along maybe 3 or 4 different spots, and then we've got a few section plan view details that I can also go over a little bit more detail on those blocks, but skipping past the knuckle, few blocks, obviously this is the Sarah Avenue Bridge going over the ramps on off ramps. It's basically going to stay the same. The cycle track, it appears raised here. It's not going to be raised. It's going to be at street level. We're going to have what you don't see in this little tan section between the car and the cycle lane. There's going to be a short barrier wall, 18 inches, like you guys have seen on some of these other bridges. Go ahead and click forward. That's the only thing we're going to add to the bridge. Moving into the cycle track, we'll go back to raised off the bridge on either side. MoDOT didn't want to have any more complications with more load or et cetera. So, but the cycle track will remain raised. It goes back down to street level at the MetroLink, which obviously the MetroLink is a crossing at grade, and believe it or not, so is the Brick Line Greenway. So all of our proposed cycle track through that area is going to remain at street level, and actually this is really where the raised section of the cycle track, what we call the racetrack, ends. After this, we pass a few back entrances to I guess I didn't have any more details. A few back entrances to BJC and
Some Cortex garages.
But we're at Duncan, which is the next block down, we're transitioning to cycle tracks on or shared use bike paths on either side so that we can maintain the northbound Sarah left turn lane on Forest Park Avenue, which was critical to traffic based on the traffic study. And yeah, we did everything we could to try and, I mean, that was our main goal, to try and keep traffic, parking anywhere we could, but we had a specific minimum on the cycle track width to maintain safety. We needed to have a buffer between parking, if we had parking and traffic, so that a car door didn't take out a cyclist going 25 miles an hour. And of course, the city has a limit on sidewalk width of 5 feet. And without taking additional land from the 5 residences across from Chroma, we weren't going to be able to keep parking on both sides. And that was with the tiniest European-style parking lanes that we could design without getting pushback from the city. So again, this would be just like phase 1. Phase 2 is going to be a city-owned facility when it's done. Yeah, and that's, yeah. Any questions? I guess we're at
That
question.
900 block of Sarah across from Chroma, the residents on the west side, they won't have parking in front of their home.
They will, that's what we're saying.
They will. So we're actually going to,
Wondered which side the parking was on, so.
yes, so we're transitioning parking, well, right now, parking is on both sides. Parking on that section and, yeah, I'm trying to think, did I?
Yeah, so parking on the west side, not on the east side.
That's right, we're actually, the road lane, driving traffic lane northbound will be where parking is now. So we already spoke with, Green Space, Green Streets, the owner of Chroma, to get their feedback on it. They love the idea of having the cycle track. They also own, they're losing essentially 7 or 8 spots. And they own parking, an entire lot they're opening to public use across the street. They were really like, well, I guess we'll just have to direct leasing to that, but we like the idea of, having the cycle track. This is what it takes. We're for it. And honestly, not having the parking spaces right there might improve the resale value of the first floor spaces. His words, not mine. I don't know about that, but they were all for it. And, what can we do next? How can we get more of this stuff in the city? But again, Lockmuir's working on this one little section. We are working on other sections, but I'm here to talk about this one and of course, phase 1, if you guys have any questions. But we did, as far as engagement relative to that parking, we didn't just speak with Green Street, we spoke with Alderman Browning, we spoke, we've had stakeholder meetings with BJC and all, commercial properties within the area. So, and our next step as far as engagement, we actually plan on having an open house probably mid to late May. We're hoping to have that at the Cortex building. So if you want to see some more, we will have a full set of plans. We literally just finished our preliminary plan set. Finished it last week, sent it off to MoDOT for review on Monday. So
this one phase goes from Tower Grove Park to Cortex, basically?
2 phases, but yes, 2 phases. It splits right when Vandeventer, it turns from Vandeventer on to Sarah, it goes from phase 1 to phase 2.
But from Tower Grove Park to Cortex is where we're trying to do.
Yep, that's all of that is the Tower Grove connector, cycle track.
Yeah, there's gonna be another phase, I guess, to go north, to North St. Louis eventually, or no?
At the moment, you'll see with this map, GRG, Great Ridge Greenway, is already planning to have a new cycle track on Spring. And that'll go up to Grand, all the way to Fairground Park. So that's kind of the current plan, is you'll be able to come down on the Brickline Greenway through Slough and get up to the north city that way.
I'm so happy for you guys that you're getting this project and this funding is gonna be approved, but it seems like we're disrupting a lot of traffic, losing a lot of valuable parking for a population that is not here. We don't ride bicycles like that. I ride almost every day. I'm not seeing, it's not overcrowded with bikes, I'm telling you that. But I'm glad you guys got the money.
Well, yep, so the money that, I'm glad you brought that up, the money is through private and public funding, so most of which is coming through a CMAQ federal grant for safer streets and access. So part of that is because we're planning to rebuild all of the sidewalks as well as the crosswalks associated with those intersections. So it's not just making safer traffic for bicyclists, but it's also making safer traffic for pedestrians. And the lane reductions will also make a lane diet better for traffic. So, but essentially what you're seeing here it's through a lot of planning and studies, years of planning and public engagement and studies to find these paths that are, to your point, the least impactful as we can be relative to the heavy traffic corridors. You know, when the city and the community asks for these kinds of improvements, you gotta find a way to squeeze them in, and we're doing our best to find the best way to squeeze them in, so.
A quick question about phase one. Do I need a microphone? I can speak loud
The secretary would like to.
I'm sorry.
enough. Yeah, question on phase one, about the intersection at Tower Grove and Van. If one is on a bike going, south on Tower Grove, coming from the neighborhood and crossing over Van, is it possible to just cross over and connect to, the McCree Avenue without doing all those switches and turns, and waiting for all the signals at the pedestrian crossings?
So yeah, you will be able to go, so according to this so far, if you were going sort of up the hill, southbound, and you were trying to get onto the cycle track, there will be a little waiting box here in the corner. So you go through the green, and then once that green signal for Tower Grove ends, then Vandeventer hits the green, you'll be able to cross over, sort of as if you were a pedestrian on both sides, and get into the cycle track. You could, if you wanted to, merge into traffic in the intersection, or I mean, I guess you could just sit right here in the car lane and ride all the way south in the car lane and then slip onto the cycle track. We've talked about that. If you already are a cyclist, I mean, I ride this all the time when I'm going to Cortex, when I'm trying to get downtown, and I sit here and I hate it, but I've been riding a bike for 10 years. I don't care about riding with a car behind me, right? If you already do this today, that's an option for you if you want to go as home as quickly as possible. You're also, I believe, Lee, correct me, this is a little inaccurate in this outdated drawing. This will be a two-way crossing for bikes here. So we have it shown as a one-way north, but it will be a two-way crossing. And so if you wanted to come over and hop into this two-way facility, whenever you feel safe back at Hunt or Racecourse Avenue, and just pop over and sit here at the light, you could come down and get on the cycle track that way. So you have sort of three options depending on how, skilled you are or experienced you are as a cyclist.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's important to note that we're trying to make the bicycle track or these pathways more accessible by making safer paths. But for those people that are already, sorry for anyone online that didn't hear me, for those people that maybe are already used to cycling in traffic, we're certainly not trying to take away or, funnel everything into this one path. We're just trying to create more accessibility, so.
Just some comments here from online. Tower Grove is, as you had alluded to a little bit, Tower Grove Ave is a popular north-south biking route, especially since people take it to the pedestrian bridge. My question coming out of that comment there, are there any plans to, I guess, either repave Tower Grove Ave or make it a more pleasant experience for those who do use that direct route from Tower Grove up into the connector or the pedestrian bridge?
Yeah. At the moment, short answer, no. There are no plans. I'm aware for Tower Grove Ave, outside of getting past Racecourse right here, because that's kind of where the project limit ends. I have personally really wanted to see a sort of further extension of this up Tower Grove Ave to Shoto and over to the Fed Bridge. I know that even compared to Sarah, Tower Grove Ave has so much more parking that's used, especially with the school and the school buses and everything like that. So there's very tight amount of room there to try and squeeze everything in. It could be up to the alderman to maybe put in some bump outs or something that would make that a little bit safer, but I think at the moment it's going to stay how it is. The Shoto section, as Michael alluded to a little bit earlier, possibly could see some improvements with the Tower Ave section. Well, what we're envisioning here, all of this goes back to like 2015, where TrailNet did a lot of community engagement, and we had what we called the Connecting St. Louis plan, and we identified Tower Ave and Vandeventer as a priority. At the time, if you think back to 2015, it's almost 10 years ago now, Cortex Metrolink was like basically brand new, and that was like the hot new thing. There wasn't even a Metrolink station there before, right? And even just a few years before that, Tower Ave didn't even have bike lanes on it. It was a 4-lane road. So there's been a sort of progression here saying our priority is to get people on bikes to the Metrolink station so they can, go to Wash. You can then get on the train and go to WashU. You can get on the train and go downtown. And obviously, COVID and everything has changed commuting patterns, but the goal here is still to connect, the larger network into the transit network, connecting into the Great Rivers Greenway network. So not the best solution if you want to bike commute all the way through Forest Park. We will have this option with the Greenway, the Brickline Greenway, that'll then go along Clayton. If you wanted to stay completely safe, completely off the road, you will have the option to go all the way up to the Brickline and then take that into Forest Park.
Any other questions? Comments? Praise?
Yeah.
Sorry, one more thing. You mentioned the corner on the northeast side and how that would be a transition point going, if you wanted to get on the bikeway or,
Back in McCree?
nope, not in McCree,
Tower Grove, Van Ven-
at Tower Grove and Vandeventer.
Yeah.
Yep, so that corner where
Yeah.
you were pointing to earlier, opposite
This
that one, yeah. That's also a very steep decline, and there tends to be a little bit of a blind spot for some cars, especially when bicyclists are trying to merge into traffic. I would highly consider just really revisiting that, because it seems like you're adding confusion to that corner, and I'm
So
concerned.
We've got an outer curb right here. So bicyclists are actually protected by pretty wide radius. This is what the bike path is, this inner part right here. And this outer gray line is the turn.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just saying, it looks like there's a lot of congestion going on there, and maybe some better diagrams would help alleviate concerns. But right now, it seems like the complexity level is being increased instead of decreased. That's it.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I do believe all of these sort of lighter shade crossings you see here are green paint. So there will be, and like I said, this will be a 2-way crossing for bikes. So it'll be a very wide green paint. So there'll be a lot of marking here to show, hey, this is a bike crossing, not just the standard crosswalk. But yeah, understand that point. It is a really weird corner. I think part of this is that this is a park, a city-owned park, for that, whatever triangle that is. And so there is some room there to like take away some of the park space.
I was just gonna add, because it's the paving question, so, to the paving question, so Tower Grove Avenue will be paved and in the entirety of what is in this project scope. Vandeventer within the project scope is also getting repaved as a part of it, so just so folks are aware. And just to thank Alderman Browning for his support on this project, because we needed additional support from the alders in order to reach the goal. And so I think he was a great advocate for the project, and it's really appreciate that as well.
Thank you. I know we already clapped.
So we spent a lot of time paying attention to Tower Grove Ave and then Sarah. I think my curiosity comes from Vandeventer then, specifically the crossings that would be like across from Kentucky and all of those kind of streets that hook up to Vandeventer. So as a part of this, are there any changes to some of those crosswalks that would hook into Vandeventer? I know if it's getting repaved, that seems like the opportunity for that sort of thing. So is that just a piece that maybe was missing or is planned and I just haven't seen anything on it yet?
So there are not any plans to change any of the existing facilities relative to crosswalks between Boyle and Sarah. It's essentially that signalization at the Sarah intersection where, you know, and again, further back at Boyle where you're gonna have the ability to cross at Kentucky or College or Townage. Yeah,
Townage isn't really.
I came on phase two, I apologize, don't hold me to that. There are not, but this question actually came up during the stakeholders meeting as well, you know, there. I would say, with the exception of making the existing cycle paths and crossings more robust, there is a bit of signalization that is being added, but we're really not changing, with the exception of, you know, adding a cycle track next to a sidewalk, what is there. So, you know, it takes a lot of study and consideration just to do what we're doing. So fortunately, we are not necessarily creating better access for people that are wanting to cross Vandeventer from, you know, west to east or vice versa.
It's a shorter distance though.
Yeah, actually, so
faster.
we are reducing, we're taking it from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes. You know, so between landscaping, it does reduce curb to curb, the amount of cross. So I guess that's one added benefit. Thank you for reminding me. We did know that, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I appreciate the tighter lanes there because the example that comes to mind, and I know we shouldn't shape our city around one business, but Rockwell has very much created a situation where people exit our neighborhood to Rockwell just across the mile west of Vandeventer. I mean, everyone runs it, but it's, I know it's not your purview, but I guess that's just an area that feels like this is the opportunity to fix that.
Yeah, I would add that as we see potential future development along Vandeventer, that it do become more accessible to those in the neighborhood nearby. As just an example, I live at Kentucky and go to Rockwell. So crossing that street, you know, would be great to have it more accessible, safer.
Yeah. So I will say, with this being now down to 3 lanes instead of 4, and you have a center turn lane, you know, as Lee was talking about, a lot of our pretty much all the money is being spent on redoing this curve. And so if we have to start touching these curbs, that's way more money. But it makes it a lot easier. I know there's a lot of like driveways and everything for like Rockwell and all these other businesses. So that turn lane needs to be mostly open. You couldn't put an island in because there's so many driveways. But I think after construction, if you found a spot, maybe a little bit of analysis by the streets department, pouring a concrete island here for like $20,000 is not out of the question if you wanted to add a new crosswalk in.
We have about time for maybe 2 more questions. I have one online, so.
So I'm assuming the purpose of this is also to increase walkability within these streets. But one of the things that's scary here is you can't really cross the street because cars just zoom through. Is there anything being done to put signs to say pedestrians have the right way for crossing? Because if you're gonna do all of this, that seems to be something we have to train the people that drive in the city to be aware that pedestrians, we need to look at them first before we actually cross the street.
Right, so all of this will include new, really high visibility, really good quality, good paint crosswalks, new like fresh white paint crosswalks that are a lot more visible than the ones that currently exist in most of St. Louis. You know, it's gonna be good quality paint that lasts 10 years and not fades in 6 months. And it'll be, you know, 10 feet wide crosswalks. So it shouldn't be too hard for drivers, especially Van de Winter. The only crossings will be Tower Grove, Boyle, and then Sarah. So where there are crossings for pedestrians, there will be traffic lights. So you'll only be able to cross as pedestrian when Van de Winter has the red light. So in theory, it's a relatively safe environment for pedestrians, especially with it going down from 4 lanes to 3.
I have one question here from the Zoom. Previous plan suggested being able to close Sarah Street just north of Banavento to create more public space. Is that still a possibility?
I believe that previous plan was part of the super early concepting of what the Tower Connector was going to be. At the moment, you know, the way that, since we're like 60% done on design here, I don't really see that happening, although it certainly isn't impossible in the future after construction to put up some barricades and close down these car lanes, especially because there won't be any more parking on this block. Although there are alleyways, so, you know, people would need to figure out access for those alleyways. You know, you wanted to set up a temporary weekend block party or something, this might be a really great block to do it on. There's nothing else going on except for 2 drive lanes and the cycle track. But at the moment, I don't think closing the road completely is going to be happening in this project.
I will also add that although the city's all for lane diets, like many of you have brought up, they do not like taking away public parking. So this was, with the exception of they wanted to improve bike access and the ADA improvements that come along with this kind of corridor, they tried, I want to use a 4-letter word, but I won't. They tried really hard. Are you sure you can't add some more parking spots right here? I mean, we looked at every block and they really did try. So, you know, I don't see it changing in the near future. So
I would say you could, alternatively, I really doubt the city will do this. You could take one of those driving lanes and make it a parking lane and make this a one-way road. Whether it was north or south, I really don't think either one particularly matters more than the other. Probably south, I don't know. If you wanted to really have a lot of parking and only have cars go in one direction, that's not exactly, it still wouldn't be a, you know, pedestrian plaza like the initial concept was. Certainly not the same thing. But if parking was a super big concern, if you really go into rehab or you live really close in this area and parking was a huge concern, that could be an option. That's the only way to get parking in this area. I will also note that the new light at Sarah and Van de Winter, and with the road diet at Van de Winter, and as we were just talking about with pedestrian crossing Van de Winter, is going to be so much safer now. Think about last time you went on Van de Winter and actually saw people using the parking. It's so narrow, the road is so fast, there's no crosswalks. It's really hard to think that somebody going to rehab would park on Van de Winter because there's no safe way to get over there. But with a new light at Sarah, that actually opens up sort of more usable, safe parking for pedestrians to be able to cross over.
Cool. Just a comment here from online. Alec here says, just want to say super excited for this project and this has been a great presentation. So I think we'll end it on that one. Thank you guys for coming out today and spending your evening with us.
I will add,
Yeah.
if you want to throw up the last slide, actually the one after the questions.
Yep, there you go.
So feel free to go to our website, Tower Grove Connector, and sign up for project updates on the box. We've got basically all of these renderings. We're constantly, as soon as we get plans finalized, we update renderings and we load that stuff into the internet. And again, as soon as project updates will come out as soon as we issue them. We'll have the public meeting, open house, more than likely at the Cortex facility off of Duncan, here mid-May at some point. Of course, that'll all be there. And thank you again for having us, guys.
Cool. Thank you, guys. We'll wrap it up here. Upcoming activities around the neighborhood. Neighborhood cleanup is this Saturday at 10 a.m. You can meet at Newstead in Manchester. We have a tree mulching event at Shoto Park on Sunday, April 7th at 10 a.m. Join us for some drinks and some pizza at Pie Guy to support Midtown at a Young Professionals Happy Hour. Our next neighborhood association meeting will be on April 16th, right here. And then the community open house for NorthPoint Apartments on Saturday, April 20th at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at SLU High School in the Kerrigan Room. If you have any questions, you can reach out to myself or hit up the website. With that being said, thanks, y'all. Thank you, guys.